Tomorrow's going to be incredibly special. Obviously, the home opener, Jackie Robinson Day, the unveiling of the Tom Seaver statue. But, specific to the game, I know it got a little rocky with the bullpen, whatever. All right, they're still going to have to navigate that a lot this season. And we trust Buckle. Buckle will get it done, probably make a trade as well. But how many times can Met hitters get hit?
That's right.
With no retaliation? They had to fire back.
The 10th one. 10th hit by pitch this year for the Mets, and they finally retaliated. Sean Reed Foley went after, I forget who it's, Segura.
Segura.
Yeah,
leave it to the Irishman to start trouble.
Yeah, I know, right? But
the tatted up Irishman.
I mean, honestly, I didn't think they were going to respond.
They had to.
I know they had to, but I didn't think that they were, BT, especially even in Sean Reed Foley's at-bat with Segura. The first pitch was away high ball. Next pitch was a slider. It was tailing away, and then he comes in the third pitch.
That's the way you do it. You disguise it.
95 mile an hour, tighten inside. And, it is about time. And obviously this was, I'm not directed, but you could just probably feel this, the need for it happening in the clubhouse. And Sean Reed Foley got it done. Obviously, he got knocked out of the game and, shortly thereafter, but that's neither here nor there. He served his role. And I think that's the important thing for this Mets team, because they can't get picked on like this. Now, they are an up-and-coming team. We've heard this all offseason, how teams were, not from a player standpoint, just teams in general were terrified or disgruntled or whatever you want to call it about Steve Cohen spending all of this money to bring in all these stars, Lindor and Scherzer, etc., Bassett. And so they're getting picked on. It's like they're getting a little bit, we are the big brother. We've been here forever. Now you guys think you're up and coming? Let me show you all.
Yeah.
They had to retaliate, and I'm glad they did.
And the biggest issue is that they were getting picked on by a team that they're supposed to punk, which is the Nats. Now, the Phillies obviously more of a threat this year, even though they can't catch anything. But, listen, the disparity in hit by pitchers, it's just completely unacceptable. Hit by pitches, it's completely unacceptable. It's 10-1, as Tiki said. So, I just get in these tweet zones, and I get home, and kids had things that, like, my son was doing STEM, like the one non-sport STEM class, dance class. Daddy had like 40 minutes before he had to go to practice, right? So I'm in my office. I'm watching the Met. I'm listening to the Met game on the way home. I watch the game in my office. Bang, Dom Smith gets drilled. I tweet. Here's what I tweeted. All right, Mets need to start drilling people, plain and simple. Inside cheese. And, of course, I get the reaction from all the pacifists. Just win the game. You know what bothers me about that? How about you do both?
Yes. Which they did, by the way.
No, I know. I don't understand. I don't understand how some people are wired. I know it's probably a generational thing. I understand you don't trust the bullpen, but if you're a Mets fan and you tweeted back at me yesterday, or you didn't tweet back to me, but you did not think that the Mets should retaliate, like, it's not a good sign. Tiki's picture just fell.
Oh, it stayed kind of halfway there.
It did. Tiki's picture fell.
It's like I got my hand down, bracing to keep my balance.
Well, you're not down yet. Keep running.
Exactly. Keep breaking tackles.
We've got this this beautiful oil painting of Tiki that I don't even know who did it. It was hanging by Eric Spitz's old office. We love Spitzy. And, of course, no pictures of me, just Tiki. So on the hey, let's have Tiki, the former star. So I said, I'm going to make my partner feel that. We'll get back to the Mets in a second. I'll make my partner feel at home. So 2 days ago, I walked down. Though Spitzy's been gone for about 2 years now over at Sirius XM. I said, I'm lifting this thing. I took it right off the wall.
Nobody else appreciates it.
No. I brought it right into our studio, and obviously Carton and Roberts have the SNY Sablecast, and they've got the Alonso jersey, and we've got to make sure that it's out of the way, which we do. But I made it, I wanted Tiki to feel good. It's not exactly the most stable sitting or setting, but it just fell. And the funny thing is, I usually set it up every morning. Tiki went and got it this morning, and Tiki's now feeling himself and hung it himself.
I am not an engineer.
And it fell.
I am not an engineer.
Neither am I. So anyway, I don't understand, how can you root for a team and watch, a week into the season, your players get continuously drilled, and every night or day, and rightfully so, your manager, jump up to the top step, start barking, and not want to retaliate. Like, I don't understand, and I don't mean you hit somebody in the head. Listen, if Segura's out for a while, that's unfortunate. I certainly don't subscribe to that.
No.
But when you start throwing inside and banging my guys, I'm going to have to start throwing inside and banging yours.
Yeah, McCann.
And it is what it is. Tough.
McCann's been hit twice. Pete Alonso twice. McNeil has been hit once.
Lindor in the face on the bunt.
Lindor was in the face. Obviously, Canna's been hit.
Yep.
And Starling Marte has been hit twice.
Is what it is.
It's just, it's a lot of hit. But Dom Smith, who hasn't even been playing every day, he's been hit already. So, yeah, the Mets had to do what they had to do to take care of this. And by the way that they did it, it was in the fifth inning.
I think it was the sixth inning.
It was the sixth inning. Because
Scherzer did not do it.
That's right. Scherzer was still in the fifth. He did not do it. When Sean Reed Foley came in, he did do it in his first batter of that inning. And they had a significant, they had a lead. Like you're talking about, hey, you got to win.
I think it was 8-1 at that point.
Exactly. I mean, they were winning significantly. They had the game in hand, and even though the bullpen, Joely Rodriguez is having a rough start to this season, BT. But even though the bullpen gave away a couple of runs, it was clearly in hand. And so that's the way you do it. You're not jeopardizing the win and retaliating, and you do it with a purpose, and you do it in a way that makes people say, we're not going to take this anymore.
And by the way, Tiki, if you can't drill somebody when you're up 7 runs in the latter stages of the game, you probably don't deserve to be in the mix be a championship team anyway. I get it. If it's 4-3, if it's 3-2, if it's a situation like it was a couple nights ago where, do you really, Scherzer's first start, do you really want to retaliate right away? Because it's not, this is the one issue, it's not aligned fairly.
Yeah.
Because the team that retaliates is the team that gets bounced, because then the warning is issued, or the player gets bounced from the team that retaliates in a secondary manner. So I get it. There's an art to this, and you don't want to have beanball wars. But to me, this is a culture establisher. This is a tone setter. And the Mets, unlike the Yankees, who are still and we'll get to the Yanks in a bit, station to station, plodding, not incredibly athletic at all. A lot of nights boring unless they're banging bombs, which they finally did going back-to-back last night. Still not enough. Guerrero, my God, he's good. But, the Mets are built and constructed to have this kind of gritty DNA.
Yeah.
Like they've got athletes, they've got grinders, and you've got to get their back.
Yeah,
you have to.
And by the way, it was typified by their starting pitcher last night, Max Scherzer, who struggled in the first inning. I mean, he had the bases loaded, basically walked the bases loaded.
And we were on the air when there was a rocky start.
Yep, and then got out of it, and then he dialed in, and he took care of business until he was pulled in the fifth, and that's when Sean Reed to talk about today. And obviously, it was going to be the Mets because of their start. They're 5-2. A couple bullpen meltdowns, but other than that,
I wish I could be at the game tomorrow. By the way, I really wish I could be out there at City.
Me too.
That's going to be a special day.
It's going to be fantastic. But they're weathering the DeGrom injury, right? Their pitching staff has been stepping up, and whether it's McGill or even Carrasco, and even Walker, who has had the injury with the bursitis, he'll be back.
But was good in the 2 innings.
He was good.
Bassett's been terrific.
Take his spot. You feel good about the Mets right now.
Yeah.
But there's an issue, and it's a couple years out.
Let's get into it.
BT identified that.
Well,
I mean,
to be fair,
you identified it to me.
I did. Boomer actually. I heard Boomer. They were talking about contracts, and this obviously pertains to Judge. And no, we're not getting into Judge's deal specifically right now. Everybody's tired of that. I get it.
The parallels are interesting.
The parallels are interesting, but I do want to give Booms and Gio at least. Booms brought it up, and they kicked it around, and they talk about how many contracts that are of incredible length actually work out in terms of the duration.
Yes.
And there's a scarce amount. I actually texted Gio while I was stuck in traffic. It's miserable. I mean, it's Holy Thursday. Why is there traffic?
I don't know.
But there was. So I was at a stoplight trying to get into the Holland Tunnel. I texted Gio KG.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to get not just baseball examples, and there's very few examples where you give a guy a lengthy deal and, the final 3-4 years, it works out well. And they were talking about Judge on some level, but then I heard Boomer say Alonso. And if you think about this, all right, the parallels, to use your word, are incredible. Now, so Judge, who in essence is being penalized for going to college, although this is misrepresented. If he didn't go to college, he would not be here, I don't think. He would not be Aaron Judge.
That's right.
Because he was drafted in the 31st round out of high school. But those extra 3 years, which is the point, it's changing the dynamic of the contract negotiations. We all know that with Aaron Judge. He's going to be 30 this summer. All right. So, like Judge, Pete Alonso went to college for 3 years.
Yep.
Played in the SEC. Played at Florida. Now, Judge's debut, this is crazy. He was 24 years old and 109 days. Alonso, 24 and 111 days. Now, we know that, Pete had, 53 home runs, and Judge had the 52.
Yep.
They both won the Rookie of the Year. Like Alonso, before, obviously Judge is going through this now, multiple years of arbitration. And the one difference here is that Met fans might contest this, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I think it's true. Alonso doesn't sell tickets like Judge, nor do I think he ever necessarily will. However, the comparisons here are incredible. And while the Yankees kept kicking this thing down the road, which has made it somewhat untenable, or at least murky, given his age and his injury history, do the Mets proactively address this in a way that the Yankees did not?
I mean, I think that the Mets are in a better position to get through the Pete Alonso 2 more years of arbitration and sign long-term deal better than the Yankees, because we know that the Mets are not scared to spend money right now. It's basically the history of the organization that's hampering the Yankees from spending the money on their homegrown superstar and Aaron Judge, we've talked about for the last 2 weeks now. Pete Alonso is in a different spot because they got new ownership after the Wilpons were, famously, tight with the pocketbook. Stevie Cohen will spend the money. And so if it does get to the point in 2 years when Pete Alonso will also, like Aaron Judge, be 29 years old, will they spend the money? I think the answer is yes. Now, the question that you're asking, and I think is a better one, if you do it, say, after this season, so before he goes into his second year of arbitration, you actually get a chance to get him cheaper. And I think that's the way to go if you're the Mets, right? Pete Alonso, who we identified yesterday as one of these up-and-comers in New York sports, baseball in particular. Pete Alonso.
One of a few. It's not many.
You're right. But Pete Alonso, you just feel like he's going to keep rising. Like you're not even close to the ceiling yet. And if he turns into it doesn't even have to be a serviceable fielder at this point anymore because the DH is in the National League. So there's a chance for the Mets to lock him up long term and avoid the contention that the Yankees are feeling right now with Aaron Judge.
And that's the point. Now, you want to incorporate this. He's going to age less gracefully than Judge, just the body type, a little thicker. But he's also been far healthier.
Yeah, but if he's not playing every day,
well, that's the other thing, too.
As a position player.
One of the things that makes Judge very unique is his incredible intoxicating power, but coupled with grace.
Yeah, well, think about
and dexterity. Alonso is not quick, and he doesn't need to be.
No, he doesn't try to be.
So as he gets older, it's not a big deal.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying.
He's not trying to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's not trying to be. He's not trying to lay out for, out balls in the outfield like Aaron Judge, cracking a rib, causing an oblique or lat injury, whatever the heck it was. It kept him out for 30 days or whatever. Aaron Judge got hurt or 20 games or so. He's not. That's not going to happen to him. And so I think it's almost advantageous health wise that he's not that guy that wants to be an elite athlete like Aaron Judge tries to be at 6'8", 280 pounds.
877-337-6666. Tiki and Tierney Show. We'll start weaving in the Cole stuff as well, obviously. Vlad Guerrero is an absolute monster and not a good night at the stadium. A lot of issues, once again, bubbling to the surface for the Yankees. But this Alonso situation's really interesting. If I own the Mets, here's what I'd do. I would get to the end of this year, all right? I'm not going to do it now. There's no need to do it now.
No need.
I'm going to get to the end of the season. Now, his first year, he bangs 53 with 120 RBIs, OPS, incredible, almost 950. Year number 2, which was the condensed season, he played, I think it was 57 out of 60. So he's very durable.
Yep.
And if you start to prorate the numbers, he had 16 bombs in basically 16 games. So 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. I mean, you're back in the neighborhood of elite, prodigious power.
That's right.
All right. The OPS, not quite as good, but good. And then last year, played 152 games, and he smashed almost 40 home runs. If Pete Alonso, and he's on pace to do it again because he leads the league with 10 RBIs already.
That's right.
If Alonso delivers, in the vicinity of 37 to 42 home runs, the same, 900 OPS, 110 ribbies, whatever, I'm going to go to his reps, and I'm going to really take a page at what's going on in the Bronx, learn a lesson, and really try to circumvent disaster.
Yeah.
and also save some money on the back end.
No, of course.
By buying out the arbitration like the Yankees did not do.
That's exactly right. And again, we talk about how he doesn't necessarily have to be a position player at this point. Having Dom Smith in the lineup yesterday, obviously as a first baseman, and then Alonso as the DH, that's the way that this Mets team needs to go. Right, I know that we're figuring out Robinson Cano. If you're a Mets fan, you gotta know what Robinson Cano's got left. But it feels so much better with the way the lineup was laid out yesterday with Dom and Pete Alonso in the lineup, as opposed to Robinson Cano being out there.
And by the way, Dom Smith's not even off to a good start.
That's right.
I mean, I think what was it when I was in the car? I remember he struck out his first 2 times. I think both were looking. By the way, I think. And he was 1 for 10 with 7 strikeouts at that point. He's going to hit. And you've got to trust that Buck Showalter is going to find the right recipe, not just out of the bullpen, which will be more elusive because I don't think there's as many options in terms of what he can do with the starting, 9 or starting 8, I should say, position-wise. But I think that this is a team that is going to be a lot of fun. And I don't think we're surprised. There's just a grit. There's a toughness, which is why they needed to retire. Again, I don't want to sound like a caveman, but if you have athletes and you have grinders and you have guys who play kind of old schoolish, I think you need to subscribe to the old school mentality. That's why I thought it was imperative that they drilled somebody. So Met fans have to be feeling pretty good. But on the Alonso stuff, the contract, what would you do? If you're Stevie Cohen, how would you handle this? 877-337-6666. We've got Yankee tickets to give away coming up at 12:20, which we'll do. Gleyber Torres, another butcher job in the infield. He's a mess. Yankees are so boring. We'll get to that as well. Tiki and Tierney on the Fan. We got you till 2. Then it's Carter Roberts coming up after us.